Welcome to the podcast, Beyond Expectations, Parenting Autism. Follow Michelle Chabolla's journey of raising a child with autism, the challenges, victories, and rewards. If you're a parent, caregiver, or simply someone seeking to understand autism on a personal level, you're in the right place.
All right, here we are. And I have a very special guest today, a former boss and Gregory's former special ed teacher from middle school. So I really want Sylvia to share her experience, if she can, in 30 minutes, 44 years of experience, and what she recommends parents to expect and not expect out of middle school, right?
Right.
Kind of overwhelming, right? Middle school's horrible for everybody, and then add a disability to it, and it kind of multiplies. So if you could share with us what everybody needs to know and tell them about your experience, that would be great.
I started teaching in 1974. So it was, and I was a special education major, but it was before Public Law 94-142 was in effect.
What are those for people that don't know what those are?
The special education laws.
Meaning?
And the federal mandate for special education services to be provided by local school districts.
So before then, what was it?
It was church basements, wherever there were school districts that did provide educational services, but there were really no guidelines, it was kind of out of the goodness of they knew they needed to do something for these young people, but there were really no rules, no guidelines, and really no research, especially for special education students that have more significant support needs.
So this is where you jumped in at, huh?
Right. And so my first employer was not a school district. And I moved to Colorado, and services for the first 7 years that I taught were provided through what we call community center boards, which were started by the ARC here in Colorado, the ARC. And my classroom, my first year of teaching, I think I shared with you, was in a building that was 3 World War II Army barracks that were joined together.
That is just so unreal to me. So unreal.
And I had 12 students, and there was no PE, there was no music, there was no art teacher. It was me and one teaching assistant for those 12 students in a room all day. So
wow.
And we did have an elementary school. I taught then students 9 to 12 years. And there was no playground, but we were not allowed to have our kids go over to the playground at the school across the street because of liability issues with what we were told. So
fast forward to the 80s, they put them in they still separated them into those little portable buildings, right? That's when I was a child or in school, that's what they did.
Yeah.
Or 70s, I guess, late 70s, maybe.
Right. But actually what happened, sheer luck, our building was condemned by our municipal fire chief. And he said, we can't do this anymore. And so we had no place to go. So finally, what was decided was my classroom and the primary age students, ages 6 to 8, those 2 classes would go to an elementary school in Englewood, Colorado. And that launched me in my career to look at how do we make these kids a part of this school. And we were the first group of classes of students in Colorado, students with more significant support needs, that were in a public school. So we had tons of
Wow.
people walking through the classroom and trying to figure us out, and
Right.
and we, it started with Cheryl and I building relationships with the general ed teachers who got to know us and then got to know our kids.
Mhm.
And pretty soon it was like, well, we're doing this macrame project in art. Do you have any of your students that would like to join us in that? And I was
Wow.
like, oh, sure, let's do
Absolutely.
that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
pretty soon our students were participating in the Christmas programs and the Halloween
Wow.
parade. So, and my students joined the sixth graders to go see the Nutcracker Ballet in downtown Denver. So,
Wow.
you know,
So that was the
and it
cutting
was
edge
like,
of it. Wow.
yep,
So fast
we
forward
knew
to Deer
this
Creek.
is, and
Wow.
so they kept saying, we're trying to find a building so that we can all be back together. And Cheryl and I and the families, the parents, we all agreed that's not what we want. And so then our older students moved to a junior high the next year. And we formed the Goddard Buddies, who junior high students, then it was 7, 8, and 9. And so those students got to know our kids. We did skating parties. We did all kinds of activities together.
Yeah. And how important was that? That was so important for
Right.
everybody.
Well, and then there were places, and we were so fortunate to have a principal who was looking at the latest research, anything she could grab onto. Public Law 94 went into 94-142 went in 1975, my second year. So it was the first time that our students had IEPs.
Wow.
And I remember sitting at a faculty meeting, and one of our older teachers, she said, well, how are we going to talk about these kids if the parents are sitting there at the table with us?
Oh, wow.
And I said, how could we not have the parents sitting
We're going
there
to make
with
them
us?
cry like we did Michelle Chabolla. Individual education plan, not my favorite meetings.
No.
And that brings us fast forward to where I met you, was when Gregory lost his services at elementary in 4th grade. You and I still don't know how you came to that meeting. We think we know, we're not sure. And you were like, this is not the place for him. And then you helped me move him on, and then you got him in 7th grade. So
right. And truthfully, I think what we always need to keep in mind is that move from elementary to middle school is huge for every parent of every child.
Every child, yes.
Whether they have any kind of learning difference or not. It's terrifying. When you look at that elementary, the typical elementary model is they have that teacher that's with them all day, who
the same teacher, right? You're right.
Yes, walks with them to music class and art class. So that person is always there,
right,
with them. And so parents have that one person that they're going to talk to,
right,
and meet with. And special education for students with more significant needs can look very different depending on where you happen to land in this world.
right.
And even in our huge school district, Jefferson County is the largest school district in the state of Colorado. And
Mhm.
when I was teaching there, I think there were, when I started in Jefferson County, I think there were 92,000 students in Jefferson County.
Wow.
So
Wow.
huge, huge.
Huge. Yeah.
And truthfully, programs for kids with more significant needs really look different depending on who the teacher was.
Mhm. Absolutely. And the school, look how many times I've moved Gregory. I just,
Mhm.
and I felt, and I think I shared this with you years ago, I felt that if he wasn't wanted, and meaning wanted, if they didn't want to see him succeed and help him, I didn't want him at that school. That's
Right.
why I changed him a couple of times. I
Mhm.
just didn't want, I'm not going to force him on anybody because that's not going to work for anybody.
Right, right.
So finding that
You
right
know, and
program is huge.
right. Well, and the way our district operated was to do what they called center programs for students who had more intensive support needs,
Mhm.
who, we could make that decision that in order to be successful,
Right,
they needed support throughout their school day.
right. And
And
then you
that,
have the ones
that
that
might
won't.
look different
Right,
for lots of, it depends on that individual student, what that's
right,
gonna look like.
right.
So
And putting
so,
them
but
all in one box doesn't work for me.
no,
Wouldn't
no,
work for
no, and
anybody.
and, I mean, there are people out there who still stand firm that, no, we can do best by having them all together, but, um, I through lots of in-service training and attending conferences
Mhm.
and even working as in technical assistance to foster more inclusive programming. Um, I did grant work for a few years, and that's what we worked with teachers to provide more inclusive programming for
Yeah,
students with significant support needs.
yeah. It's just fun.
Just because, the research shows better outcomes for students the more time they spend with
Mhm.
their typical peers.
Typical peers, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. So you came up with a circle of friends, or where did it come from?
There were lots of models for peer tutor programs, they called them, came out of Oregon, I think some of the original models. And it was typically at high school. They would have peer
Oh,
tutors
okay.
that would work with the students.
Mhm.
So, that model was in place. And when I started teaching in middle school in Littleton, there really wasn't anything in place in terms of any formal peer programming or anything.
Mhm.
And the building administration really wasn't interested in getting anything going.
Yeah.
So after 3 years at that building, I had people that I had worked with at the Colorado Department of Ed who shared with me that there was going to be a new program starting at Deer Creek, and it was part of a grant program that Department of Ed was starting called the Silk Road Project, which was putting in place inclusive models for
Oh, okay.
students.
Okay.
Um, and so we had we had the students from the beginning. Um, they moved a center program to that school, to Deer Creek Middle School, and then um, and we worked with the grant staff to put practices into place. And but there was not a model for a peer program. So I wrote a little mini grant to get us going. And the Jefferson County Art gave us funding to do.
Oh, wow. So you could have those paras under you in that classroom and get them paid.
Right. So we started the peer program, and we there's a group of folks from Canada, Marsha Forrest and Judith Snow, who started the whole model for Circle of Friends in terms of a peer program. So, and I had the opportunity to attend training programs that they did at
So tell our listeners what a Circle of Friends program is, because you and I know it because I lived it. You taught it, and I lived it, and I worked it.
Right. And it's a formal program. The students, it was a class period for the students. And they would come.
Not the special needs.
Right, for the typical students.
Typical ed,
and we treated it as an elective at Deer Creek. It was a formal class. I was the teacher of record. The students received grades. So it was something that was going on their permanent record. But it was an elective class, or exploratory, we called it, at middle school. And so instead of opting for art and band and a foreign language class, our students could opt to be in Circle of Friends.
Wow.
And we started out, the first year, we had 12 students, and we met for one period a day.
What year was that? What year did you start?
That was in 19, oh boy. I'm not great with time. I think it was about 94, 95, something like that. It was my second year at the school. Okay. We did a year of, training with teachers and everything. And I wrote the grant for the little mini grant for Circle of Friends. And so then we launched it that second year. With the blessings of the principal. He was so excited about this.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so we started with one period a day with 12 students. And that was maximum because I had 12 students. I didn't want more tutors than I had students.
Right.
And so we kind of felt our way through. And a lot of it was working with them to understand, a little bit about who these students were initially. And then we had them go out and start working with the students because that's what they wanted to do. Middle school kids, they're good for a little bit of lecture, and then they just need to do it. Middle school students, all middle school students, they're very hands-on. They just want to do it. They don't want to sit and listen.
Right. That's awesome.
So
I know it was Gregory loved it.
The program grew, and again, we always kept it at the number of students that we had. And fortunately, unfortunately, our population grew. So we had 14 to 18 students with significant support needs in that center program every year. And so we could increase the number. That was a good thing. But so we typically had 10 to 12 circles students each class period. So times 6, it was a lot.
It was a lot to keep up with for you, for sure.
Oh yeah. But the students and I learned from them that what they knew our kids because our kids were in general ed classes.
Right.
So and as many of them that we possibly could make it work, they rode the bus to and from school with their peers. And so we would have we moved from semester to trimesters,
Mhm.
so that the students, and that was for everyone, at the middle school, so they could have more exploratory periods.
Yeah. Isn't that
Um,
nice? That's
yeah, so we had 40 to 55 circles students a
every
trimester,
every
and you
trimester.
multiply that by 3. So
Yeah.
3, 8. So
So not
we
only keeping up with your class, you're keeping up with all those kids as well.
right, right.
Wow.
But and the model was that we wanted them to have 3 different experiences. So we
Mhm.
split the trimester into three periods, and so they would have a different assignment.
Right. Right. With that.
Yeah, I think a trimester was like 18 weeks.
Mhm.
So they would have, or it was 12, maybe 12 weeks. I can't remember that. But they
See what
had
retirement does to you?
3 different experiences.
Wow.
Um, for the trimester. So I made sure that they had the experience of working individually with a student on if
Mhm.
students needed to have academics addressed, either reading or math,
Mhm.
um, that were individual, that was individual instruction,
Mhm.
or they might be supported in an academic classroom,
Mhm.
or they might be supported in an exploratory classroom. So PE or drama or
Wow.
choir or
Right.
whatever our students chose for their exploratories. So
That's
so they
awesome.
got to work with different students in different
Yeah.
settings.
That's so fun. And so many of your kids loved that. I mean, you had a
Oh,
waiting list every
oh yeah.
semester.
When we had a new principal come in, I think he was the 3rd principal that came in, and he came to me and he said, "I need to know about the Circle of Friends class because you're more popular than PE." And in middle school, if you're
Exactly.
more popular than PE, you've done something.
That's awesome. I just
So,
remember how important it was for Gregory to be with those kids,
oh,
and it was just such an experience. And that moved on into high school at Chatfield. They had the same program, probably
right,
from you.
right,
And
right, because the demand was there.
right,
And
right.
so they do it a little differently.
Hmm.
Um, I think they're like, they might be on their 3rd teacher since, I left the district,
Hmm.
or left Deer Creek. I didn't I continued to teach after I left Deer Creek. I was at Deer Creek for 16 years, so, um,
Wow. That is
but,
amazing.
yeah, that in fact, one of the teachers at Deer Creek now was a Circle student.
See, that's what I know came out of it, is that a lot of them
Mhm.
went into that field because they got a taste of it in
Right.
middle school, moved on to high
Mhm,
school and did it, and went on to become special ed teachers or just
mhm.
teachers in general, and then they were able to do that program where they were. So
Right, and
it's just a
yeah,
good
and
thing.
that's how I became interested in doing this. I babysat as a teenager, and there was a family, and they had a daughter who had an intellectual disability,
Mhm.
and, they said, and they also had 4 other children younger than
Mm,
her, and
wow.
they asked, "Would you be willing to babysit for us?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Sure.
sure, I'll babysit for you,"
Yeah,
you know?
never pays
Anything
it.
for a buck at that point,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, yeah, and it
And
was a buck back then.
oh, no, it was 50 cents an hour.
Oh, it wasn't even a buck. That's sad.
I've got a few years on you, Michelle.
Babysitters make a
50
fortune
cents
now,
an
don't they?
hour for 5 children, yes. But,
Wow.
I got
10
to
cents a kid.
I got to know Deb personally, and
Yeah.
it was like, "This is what I wanna do," and I did
Wow.
exploratory teaching in my senior year, and saw Deb in a classroom. And because I knew her personally, I thought she can do so much more than this,
Right.
than what was expected of her.
Right.
And so it launched my career.
That's so
So
cool.
I
And
went,
most of the time it does.
yeah,
My niece,
pardon?
she came to school with you, and she's
Mm-hmm.
been attached to Gregory since day one. And
Right,
she
right.
got her master's in special ed, actually.
And I think making those personal connections first
Oh,
is going to
absolutely.
make you such a better instructor or better support person,
I always
because
told
you
everybody that worked with Gregory, I said, you love him first, and then you teach him second,
Mhm.
because if you don't love him, he's not going to do anything
Right.
for you.
Well, and
And it was
I
true.
mean, yeah, and for me, that's what it's all about, is
Yeah,
that, getting to know them as a person. How
yeah,
can you determine what needs they have until you know
right,
that person?
right. So if your middle school that your child's going into is not lucky enough to have a Circle of Friends program,
Mhm.
but they have a centered program, you recommend the parents to look for something where they are definitely inclusive in the classrooms,
I think
if
if
it's possible for that child.
right, right. I think, and especially when you look at outcomes,
Mhm,
where do we want them to end up? And sometimes
mhm.
that's hard, especially if you're talking to a parent of a 6 or 7-year-old. At
Right.
that point, they just want them in a place where they feel like they're safe and people know them and they're going
Right.
to learn. It's that
Mhm.
that that
Yeah.
lowest
Yeah.
point.
Way different. In middle school, you start thinking about what's gonna happen when they get out of high school. It's
Right,
very eye-opening. They're
right.
protected in elementary school. It's just, that's where they're at. Like you said, the teacher's with them all the time. Then you throw them into middle school. Then you throw them into high school, and everything's like, "What are you gonna do when you grow up?"
Right,
And
right.
it's
And
very stressful for everybody.
yeah, and Colorado Department of Ed mandates that, transition planning begins at middle school for all students.
Mhm.
That's when students start taking career interest inventories, and,
Right.
and there's an actual document that follows that
Mhm.
student all through middle school and high
The high
school,
school. Mhm.
um, with, career assessments and interest assessments, all those things,
Mhm.
and to make sure that they're getting their classes and
Mhm.
doing what they need to be doing in order for that to happen.
Right.
So, of course, that has to happen for our students because,
Mhm.
well, one thing we do know is that it takes a whole lot more work in terms of getting those quality outcomes for our
Well,
students.
absolutely. Because look at Gregory, you and I never thought he'd have a woodworking business. I mean,
No,
we
no, no.
we knew he was very intricate and very, a perfectionist, definitely, right? He didn't wanna make a mistake ever.
Right.
But, what
And
I recommend is let 'em try everything if they have any type of disability. Let 'em try anything,
right.
and you never know.
And that is really what the middle school model is for all kids.
Mhm.
The
Right.
middle
Just
school
let him try.
model is a time for exploring.
Right.
Um, that's why, I mean, some schools call art and music, and PE electives or,
Mhm.
specials, or I don't know.
Right.
But the middle school model, those are called exploratories, and it's
Mhm.
a chance for them to try a foreign language, to try art, to try
Right.
music,
Right,
to
anything.
try,
Mhm.
um, just try stuff
Just try stuff, yeah.
and see what's gonna trip
Yeah.
your trigger,
Yeah,
in
exactly.
terms of,
Yeah.
"Oh, I really like music,"
Yeah, oh,
and
Michael, that's where
sometimes
Michael picked up the trumpet. He played it all through high school, and Yeah.
Right, right.
Middle
And
school.
and and sometimes maybe that doesn't go into in a career, but I mean, there's lots of research about the effects of playing a musical instrument
Oh,
or
yeah.
voice,
Hmm.
um, and how that helps your helps you in so many ways,
Right.
and not just being a member of an orchestra or
Right.
being a music
Just in
teacher, but
life.
it
In
yeah,
life.
yeah.
Hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
yeah, and so it is an opportunity to explore stuff. Now, one of the exploratories, and this was for eighth graders, was to be a student assistant.
Uh-huh.
Um, and but when we were getting to know Gregory, the OT who had worked with him, um, she was wonderful and really did a great job of helping a lot of students make that
Mhm.
transition from elementary to middle.
Middle school.
And then I had a speech language person who worked with the students at elementary, and so it really helped with the
Yeah. The
transition,
transition. Definitely.
because they
Everybody.
had some information. And one of the things that the OT Peggy had said was he really needs movement as a
Yeah,
part of
Gregor.
his day.
Hmm. Yep.
And
Still does
so
every day.
mhm.
Hmm.
And also just that the joint compression,
Hmm.
lifting and pushing,
Yep.
and so she said, it really would be good if he could work like in the library
Hmm.
or do something that's going to give him movement.
Hmm.
Um, and so Gregory, because he has an IEP, and needed that,
Exactly.
we were able to say, "He needs to do this, so
Hmm.
he can't wait until 8th grade to be a student assistant.
Right.
So we're gonna start him out from the
Mhm.
very beginning as a student
Mhm.
assistant in 7th grade."
Yeah,
And that's what puts the special in special education,
it does. It
using
absolutely does.
that IEP,
Yep.
that's what makes special education so
Yeah.
special.
And he had
Um,
such a
and
special
so
relationship with her too, with the
yeah,
librarian.
and our first year, at my first year at Deer Creek with this center program, um, we had a young man also on the autism spectrum, and he also needed that movement, that
Mhm.
and and he had some really great skills that he could use.
Mhm.
So he shelved books, and so when Peggy's talking to me about this, I said, "Oh, I know just what we can do," and
Mhm.
so went to the librarian and said,
Mhm.
"Guess what? We've got another
Got a
student
new
for
one
you."
for you.
So Gregory started as a 7th grader working in the library one
Wonderful.
period a day,
Oh,
and
he loved it.
we scheduled it so that he had a couple of academic classes, first and
Yeah.
second period, and then I think third period, he was ready to move and groove. So he
Yes,
worked in the
he was.
library,
He was
you
great.
know.
He loved it, and they had such a great relationship. It
Oh
was
yeah,
very, very cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
yeah.
Well, I knew we wouldn't be able to talk about everything, but we burned that 30 minutes.
I hope
We'll
it.
have
I
to
mean,
come back. We'll
yeah,
definitely have to come back. But this
yeah.
means so much to me and Gregory that you gave your time and energy to us during this, because you have been such a big part of our life, personally, professionally, and through
Mhm.
education and everything. And it's been great. So
Yeah.
I really, really,
It's
really, really,
well, and I mean, I have former students that are my Facebook friends,
there you go.
and I get to see them, you know,
Yeah.
moving and grooving,
Yeah. So
working,
fun.
going to rock concerts with their friends, going to
Yeah.
movies with their friends.
So fun to stay in
It's
touch.
it's
I know I
wonderful.
wonder about some of the ones that I worked with, but
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, they may not be working, but they're traveling or,
yeah, that's great.
so,
And
yeah.
you're going to come and see us, so we can't wait to see you this summer, the
Yes,
coming
yeah,
summer,
yeah.
2026. All right. Well,
In
thanks for
fact,
joining us.
okay,
All
okay.
right.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye-bye.